There is nothing more exciting than heading down to your local fish store to spend your hard-earned cash on some new shrimp. The problem is, how do you know the shrimp you're going to buy will be healthy? How do you know they're going to have a long, happy life in your care? How do you know you're not going to end up with some disease-ridden, manky old shrimp that are going to be dead within a week of adding them to your aquarium? In this video, I'm going to share with you my experiences of buying and selling shrimp to help you ensure you only purchase the healthiest livestock. Hello friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Richard and I'm the author of the Neocaridina Shrimp Handbook. The first thing you want to look at when you look into the tanks of shrimp at your local store is, are the shrimp active? Shrimp are constantly on the go, darting around the tank, looking for food, picking at algae, climbing the glass, eating biofilm from the leaves of plants. They rarely stay still. Shrimp are often described as having the zoomies, where they dart apparently randomly around the tank, although this is usually either the shrimp looking for food or a male trying to seek out a receptive female. But they're constantly on the go. If you look into a shrimp sales tank and all the shrimp are static or bunched in a corner or they're all tucked behind a single rock, then that may be a sign that there's something wrong with that colony. That could indicate that there is a pest or disease within that colony that you can't otherwise see. It's very unusual for happy, healthy shrimp to remain static, to remain in a group, to bunch up and tuck themselves away. It isn't always obvious when there's a problem with shrimp, but lack of activity is certainly an indicator that they could have an underlying problem. Shrimp also interact with one another quite a bit. I don't know if I'd go as far as to call them a social creature, but certainly they spend an awful lot of time picking up one another. You could almost even describe that as grooming one another. Probably they're picking off microscopic bacteria that are on each other, but they're constantly climbing over one another, picking up one another, bumping into one another. Again, if the sales tank full of shrimp don't appear to be interacting a great deal with one another, it could be a sign that there's a problem with that colony of shrimp. The next thing to consider, after you've looked at the colony as a whole, is start looking at the individual shrimp. Start trying to assess their individual appearance. Do they have good color? Red cherry shrimp should be red. They should be a nice, deep, dark red. They should be full of color. Black rose shrimp should be a nice, opaque black color. Color is a really important indicator of the health of the shrimp. Like so many creatures, when shrimp are stressed or unwell, their color does tend to wash out. They do lose some of their brightness. Taking time to look at a smaller group of shrimp and see, is their color looking good? Is it looking intense? Or are they looking a bit gray, a bit washed out? Could be an indicator as to whether or not there's a problem with those shrimp. After considering the color of the shrimp, take some time to look at the bodies of the individual shrimp. Shrimp shouldn't have growths or funguses or foreign bodies of any sort growing on them. You don't have to be an expert in shrimp pests and diseases to be able to spot white fungus growing on their face or green lumps growing on the side of the body. You're not trying to diagnose what might be wrong with the shrimp. You're just looking at them on the whole and seeing, is there anything on these shrimp that shouldn't be there? Now, when I personally buy shrimp, I also give some consideration to the size and the age of those shrimp. Shrimp only live for 1 to 2 years. If you're going to go out and source yourself 10, 15, 20 fully grown adult shrimp, you have to accept that they're only perhaps going to spend 4, 6, 8 months in your care. Whereas if you buy smaller, younger shrimp, yes, they might be less colorful at this stage, they might take longer to breed, but they will almost certainly live longer in your care, giving you a greater chance to build up a large, sustainable colony than if you go and buy adult shrimp. Now, if you're finding value in this video and enjoy learning about fish and shrimp keeping, why not subscribe to the channel? So once you've finished checking out the shrimp, the next thing to do is to look at the overall appearance of the tanks they're being kept in. You can tell a lot about a store and the livestock they sell just by looking at the sales tank where they keep their livestock. One question to ask yourself is, are there a lot of dead shrimp in the tank? Now, yes, if you have a sales tank with 1,000 shrimp in it, of course there'll always be 1 or 2 bodies, but there shouldn't be 20, 30, 40, 50 bodies or more. That may show either that there's a problem with the shrimp or that the store doesn't really care. They don't take time to check their stock and remove the dead bodies. Yes, shrimp in the wild and in our care will consume dead bodies when they come across. They're detrivores, is what they do. But nobody wants to be buying shrimp from a tank that has dozens and dozens of dead bodies in it. The other thing to ask yourself when you're looking into the tank is, have the shrimp been provided with hiding places? Now, yes, That may sound counterintuitive. If you're looking to sell shrimp, you don't want to give them places to hide. But shrimp that have ample hiding places, typically, well, first of all, they do tend to come out and about a lot if they have ample hiding places. They don't tend to tuck themselves away. But also shrimp with lots of hiding places are less stressed. If you throw a colony of shrimp into a bare-bottomed tank with no decorations, those shrimp will be stressed, and a stressed shrimp is susceptible to pests and diseases. You can also check, have the shrimp been provided with any botanicals like catappa leaves? Catappa leaves are an amazing source of food for shrimp. They also provide hiding places for the shrimp. The shrimp can tuck themselves under and around the leaves. In my experience, shrimp that have access to botanicals such as catappa leaves do tend to be happier, healthy shrimp. Whenever I go into a fish store, I find myself looking at how much algae is in the tanks. Now, algae on the side glass, on the back panels, on the rocks, that's not a problem. It's beneficial. I encourage algae in my own tank. It doesn't worry me at all. However, if the front pane of glass is covered in algae, that says to me that the fish store doesn't give much regard to tank maintenance. And if they can't be bothered to clean the algae off the front glass, what else can't they be bothered to do? Are they carrying out water changes? Are they treating the fish and shrimp when they see any pests or diseases? If they can't be bothered to do the basics, what else are they not doing? So if the shrimp are looking good and the tanks are looking good, what else might we want to take into consideration? Well, one thing I always consider is, does the store have a good reputation, both locally and online? If I find a new store I've never shopped in before, then one of the things I like to do is do a quick Google search. What are people saying about them online? Are people raving about the quality of the stock? Or are they going online to share their frustrations and their unhappiness about the fact everything you buy from that store is dead within a week of getting it home? Yes, every store, even the best stores in the world, will always get one or two people complaining about them. No matter what they do, you can't please all of the people. But if dozens or hundreds of people are all saying poor quality stock, dies as soon as you get home, covered in pests and diseases, whatever it might be, if lots of people are saying that, then that would be a red flag to me, and perhaps I would then look for a different store to buy stock from. I also like to consider how often a store is turning over its stock of shrimp. Are they getting through hundreds and hundreds of shrimp a week because they're selling them because they're so amazing? Or are the shrimp dying and they have to keep replacing them because the shrimp just die in their care? It can be tricky to establish why a store is turning over its stock so quickly. But one of the best ways to do it is to go and visit them 2 or 3 times over the course of a week. Have a look. Are you constantly seeing dead bodies? Or are you constantly seeing people there bagging up shrimp because they're so popular, because they sell so well? If they sell really well, generally speaking, that's because they have good quality shrimp. If they're all dying, maybe look for some different shrimp. I would also try and find out is, are they quarantining the shrimp before offering them for sale? Now, if you ever follow Corey from Aquarium Co-op, he will tell you all good fish stores should quarantine their stock before offering them for sale. But many don't. Many get them into the sales tank, sell them the same day. Everyone's a winner, unless those shrimp are carrying a pest or a disease. Typically, shrimp that are imported from overseas, from warmer countries in the Far East, etc., they're kept in huge outdoor vats or ponds, and they're really susceptible for pests and diseases. If stores aren't quarantining their new stock before offering them to sell to people like us, then we just end up with those pests and diseases in our tanks. And often, once you've got a pest or a disease in your shrimp tank, it can be really hard to treat it, really hard to eradicate it. And many of these pests and diseases can spread from tank to tank to tank so easily. Before you know it, your entire setup is full of this pest or disease. Now, do bear in mind, just because the store quarantines their shrimp doesn't mean you don't have to. Whenever I buy new stock in, unless they're going into their own dedicated tank, I keep them in a quarantine tank for 7 to 14 days, and I can see, have they got anything wrong with them? Are they carrying ick? Are they carrying a pest, a shrimp disease, whatever it might be? Much easier to treat it in a quarantine tank than it is to try and do it in my display tanks. Now, earlier in this video, I mentioned using catappa leaves, and in my opinion, catappa leaves are an absolute essential for any shrimp tank. In fact, they're one of my 5 most essential elements of every shrimp tank. And if you want to know what the other 4 are, you should watch this video next. Thanks for watching.